Oh God. Okay, change the subject.
So, anyways, tongue herpes. What were we talking about?
Hey, it's your guy Ren. Welcome to Cinema Slime, the podcast for film lovers who can't stop talking about the movies that move us, confuse us, or just make us want to yell at the screen. I'm joined, as always, by my brilliant co-hosts Harrison and Scott, because we're watching movies regardless, and we need to talk about it. Let's go.
Why are you going to the airport? Flying somewhere?
Oh, wait. Okay, hold on. Don't tell me. Why are you going to the airport? Flying somewhere? Oh, that's Dumb and Dumber. Oh my gosh, I should be. I can't believe I didn't remember that.
I was gonna say I thought you were joking because I think this is a good time to bring up a core memory I have of you.
Oh my gosh, I know what memory you're gonna talk about.
I'll fill everyone in because I think this was pre-Scott. This is before you married our sister. So we had a talent show, and in Othello we have about like 84 cousins. We just have like the biggest family you've ever imagined. And we would do around Christmas, they kind of have this back room with like kind of like a stage, but it's just like a step down. But you got the audience, the whole family's in there. And one year Harrison decided to show us his talent, which was
oh my God,
reciting verbatim every line from Dumb and Dumber. And it went on and it kept going. And then it went on a little more. And I think you got all the way to the scene where they pop the champagne and kill the two Hooters. And I think Dad he like stepped in. He was like, all right, hey guy, yeah, let's give it up for Harrison. And everyone cheered. You're like, I'm still going.
Dude, I can confidently say I did recite that verbatim, and I especially recited the very inappropriate lines that I shouldn't have said, but I didn't know what they meant.
It was like charades. You acted it out too. Facial expressions, movements, everything. It was great.
I had a cabbie hat that I put on when I was Lloyd, and I would take it off when I was being Harry. And I felt very cool during the whole time, and I wasn't embarrassed one bit, and I really should have been, but I had a good time.
I was basically, my skin was crawling, but I wanted to see how you were gonna do the toilet scene.
Now, if I'm recalling correctly, I actually didn't get that far. I think I got to, let's see. I remember the last line I said was when they go up to the door to knock on Harry and Lloyd's apartment building, and it says like, "Sorry, gas man, we'll pay the bill later." And he goes, "Gas man? How the hell do they know I got gas?" Yes. I remember that was my last line, so I didn't get like crazy too far, but I remember
you dropped the H-bomb, so you had to be removed.
I'm pretty sure I also said the line where Lloyd pulls up to Mary's house and he unbuckles and looks at the house and goes, "Oh, suck me sideways," and he gets out of the car. I feel like I remember saying that and everyone just laughed, and I was like, oh, they must think this is really fun.
Maybe you heard laughter, but it was actually like
yeah, Grandma Killian, she grasped her pearls, and all the aunts and uncles probably just laughed their asses off, and we're just like, oh my gosh. And then I'm sure Mom was in the corner, just hand over her eyes, just in shame. Yeah, that's a core memory for me as well. I'll never forget that.
Hey, I was thinking I have a little bit of an icebreaker, just something I just really want to get Scott's opinion on this news article I just came across. I just really want to get your take on this, Scott. This is in a Portland update. I believe for the Portland Mercury. For those who don't know, we're here in Portland, Oregon. This headline, I just had to share with you, Scott. It goes, Portland protesters demand more things to protest. In a surprising show of unity, hundreds of Portland protesters gathered downtown Tuesday not to decree a specific issue, but to demand more things to be upset about. Scott, your take.
It sounds like another day in Portland, just another Tuesday.
I just had to get your opinion on that. All right. Well,
it sounds pretty straightforward and something that I would believe. I believe to be true.
I read the headline. I was like, "Is this like a excerpt from like a SNL skit?" I don't get it. This is a real article for
it's
Portland,
definitely
Oregon.
Babylon Bee level of quality right there.
A
Yeah,
little bit of the
got me to click.
Yeah, a little bit of the onion, little onion news for us all there.
Welcome to your doom.
Inside a creepy old mansion in New England, a dinner party with a guest list of characters who all have something to hide, and then, bam, the host drops dead. Suddenly everyone's a suspect and they're all running around like headless chickens trying to figure out who done it, where they done it, and with what ridiculous weapon. It's basically the board game brought to chaotic, hilarious life with everyone accusing everyone, dodging secret passages, and delivering delightful, campy one-liners, all while trying not to stare at Yvette's incredible rack. And just when you think you've got it figured out, the movie pulls a fast one and gives you 3 different endings because why not? 1985's Clue. Harrison, this was from your Cinema Slime 5 list.
I feel, I feel like you're accusing me like this was you. You're the one who put it on the list. We had to watch it because it was on your
You did
list.
this to me. You did this to me.
I just want to be very clear that this was your film that you put on your list, not me, not Scott. I'm just kidding.
I will say I was looking through. I'm keeping track of all of our lists in my little document thing, and it's really funny to look at your list, Scott's list, and my list. It's we have this really intense dynamic of like me. I'm like mainstream kind of like I don't know, chiller, funner movies. Then you got Ren, who's like, yeah, I got really high watching The Northman, and we need to watch this right now. And then you got Scott with like a lot of classic films and a few in there that I've never heard of, and it's just it's really funny.
It's beautiful.
Anyways, Clue. So Clue is one of my favorite movies of all time. When anyone asks me what are my favorite movies, the first one I think of is Clue all the time. And I think there's 2 kind of main reasons for that. There's definitely some nostalgia going on with this movie because Paige and I, our older sister for the listeners here, that's kind of how we connected a lot. Was we would watch a lot of movies and we would watch a lot of TV shows together. MASH is kind of our, kind of the connecting TV show for us that we quote and we talk about all the time.
I love language.
Yeah, pretty much. And Clue is just one of those. So I have that little connection with my sister and why I love it so much. The other one is actually a connection with my wife. So I took Nicole, my current wife, my wife,
Not the
out on went out on a date, and we went to this place called Ceramic Cafe where we got to paint these ceramic somethings. I can't remember what it was. Went and got a Hawaiian pizza at Papa Murphy's, brought her back to my dad's place. We sat down, ate pizza, and we watched Clue. This is the first movie me and her ever watched together. And the part that really, I look back and I'm just like, oh my gosh, Harrison, what were you doing? We were sitting there watching it, and literally Nicole's like bundled up, with her knees up to her chest, and she's literally leaning on me, just full on like leaning on me. Hasn't put her head on my shoulder yet, but just really pushing in and leaning on me, and I'm just like, man, like I don't know why you're crowding my space, but okay, whatever.
Isn't that scary?
It was our first date. I didn't know if I could
any of us are married.
I know.
I know. Oh my gosh. Just pretty much. But yeah, no, this movie really just consistently makes me laugh and brings a lot of joy to me. And that's why it's on my list. And I'll probably watch this forever for the rest of my life.
I have a core memory of this being on the TV up in Othello at that same house where Harrison recited Dumb and Dumber. And I just remember it was always on. And I also remember like watching it and like they would say their lines and everyone else would bust up laughing. And I was like, this isn't funny. It never really connected with me. Anyways, I just like when I rewatched it for this show, I was just getting all these memories of like, okay, it's kind of funny. But like I remember people like dying of laughter. Dude, people love this movie, but there's just something about it that hasn't connected with me. I'm coming around to it a little bit more, but that's my main memory. Just being like, why are you guys laughing? Yeah. And I hate to sound like a downer. There's something about it that like doesn't quite move me.
Mm-hmm. Well, I would say it's a pretty light comedy. I don't think it's like in terms of humor, I would say it's a lot of quick dialogue. There's definitely some slapstick, moments in there as well. And I would say it's pretty light in terms of comedy. Like there's funny moment. Like I feel like it doesn't like zoom in on the funny moments at all. I feel like there's a lot of stuff even happening in the background that makes that the more like lots of times I watched it and I'm like, oh my gosh, did you see like this a perfect moment that I'm thinking of is they're inside of they're in the dining hall, they're handing out dinner, and Yvette like brings and drops some food off for Professor Green, and Professor Green just turns his head right into her chest and is just like, "Oh my gosh!" Like his face, and that is really really funny to me. And Yvette just kind of looks down and I'm like, "What are you doing? Like what?"
Yeah, I am Professor Green.
I'm more on the side of the spectrum of as Harrison with this movie. I gotta say, Ren, I love the fact that you did not connect with this movie. Like, I just love.
I'm giving it my all. I'm throwing that out there. I'm not trying to be highbrow and too cool, but go on.
So this is one of my favorite memories of Ren. Like, hands down, one of my absolute favorite memories of Ren is we're all sitting there in their dad's house. Up on the projector is Inception, and it's been playing for like 2.5 hours. You know, it's a long movie. It's in the finale, it's in the snow place. And so they're like deep, deep, deep in all the dreams. And it's like, oh man, chaos is just like absolutely happening, like pure climax. I'm at the edge of my seat. I've seen this movie like 3 times already anyway, but I'm still like, this movie is so good. It's so intense. And then like Ren just did the biggest wet blanket. He's like, when is the movie gonna end? This is like I just think about that all the time. So it just makes me so happy that Clue goes into that same category of like, all right, I'm done with this movie and I'm okay with just walking away and never thinking about it again.
I'm such a I don't know. I'm sorry. I'm sorry I'm that way. I'm trying to be better.
No, this is just interesting because so our first two movies we did, Untouchables and Northman, we all walked away from those being like, those were some of the best movies we've ever watched. So this is the first one that we've watched that 2 of us really like it and Ren actually doesn't like it. Like, do you think it's just the humor of it that didn't really connect with you? Was it the characters weren't interesting? I mean,
So
I mean, there's nothing like deep about the movie. Like, I would say, in terms of like the slimiest scenes, the ones that really stick with me, there really wasn't any scenes that kept me thinking. There was lines and funny moments that I kind of thought throughout the week, and I was like, that is a funny moment. But none of them, like, you know, really clung to us and made us think about life or anything like that. So like Ren, what didn't click with you? Would you say?
So I think a lot of so I'm watching the film and I'm like taking notes, and I realized I was kind of just taking notes. Like, for example, when at the beginning of the film, Tim Curry accidentally steps in the dog poop, and then he kind of wipes it off, and then Yvette smells it, and then someone else smells it, and then that's the end of the dog poop, and it doesn't ever come up. So like, there's like these little like there's like these little trails of like little peculiar little happenings that you're like taking notes of, but a lot of it doesn't lead to anywhere. Or someone will say, like, just a quick example of like Tim Curry walks in the kitchen, and then the chef like points the knife right at him. So there's lots of mixed messages and confusing little things to confuse the audience. But and I thought that was kind of cool, but in the beginning I was like, okay, I kind of know how this ends. I think a lot of this is foreshadowing, and there's a lot of non-foreshadow. It's just random little details, which is cool. I get it. But one thing I'll say too is today I actually have it playing in the background right now, but I was paying attention to I watched like the first 45 minutes while I was on the exercise bike. And there was a lot of dialogue that was funnier the second time that I watched it that I didn't get the first time. One of the funny things that kind of made me chuckle, but they're like at the table, they make some mention, and Colonel Mustard is like, "Oh, I prefer Rudyard Kipling books or something," and then he offers some food to Mrs. Scarlett, and he's like, "Do you like Kipling?" And she goes, "Oh, I'll try anything once." And she eats the food that he offers her, and I was like, "That's actually really funny." But like, I did not. That went right over my head the first time. I think I was like watching too hard, maybe.
Okay, so I've watched. Okay, so I said when we started recording this podcast that I'm not really a rewatcher or a rereader of media. I think I've watched this movie minimum 15 times in my life. Like I've watched this movie so many times. And it also goes into at least my top favorite 7 movies of all time, but probably top 5. And it's not because it's a deep, amazing movie. It's because it's just continuously funny to me. It's one, the more times you watch it, the more times you see the I wanted to say foreshadowing, but that would be in direct contrast to what you said. It's not like deep foreshadowing. It's just character foreshadowing, you know? This week as I was trying to think of, okay, what can I say about this movie? What stood out to me was how much of the humor is just visual gags, really underplayed visual gags. The number of like cut to Colonel Mustard like nodding absently or something, really subtle nods or something like, or him like getting pushed behind a door, or like, you know, getting the scene where it's like, is there or isn't there anybody else in the house? Yes or no? You know, and it's like, I'm sorry, what was the question? You know, just those number of scenes where it's just constantly adding weird character bios to these people. I guess my claim is that the movie has nothing to do with the murder, has nothing to do with the mystery. It has everything to do with these characters came in and they perfectly embodied a stereotype, slightly exaggerated it, and stuck to it perfectly. And it's their dynamic of how they interplay with each other that you can keep coming back. And it's like watching MASH, or it's like watching Stargate or Star Trek or something. The millionth time you've seen the same show over and over and over, but it's character driven, right? And that's what these characters are. It's not character growth at all. Like they do slightly change and grow throughout the film, but that's not the point. But you can imagine them as like real people that are just weird, quirky Washington, D.C. swamp dwellers that are all being blackmailed, and they all do their blackmail thing against each other, you know, like in this house. I find the movie really funny, just going, that's so Tim Curry, or, you know, that's so Madeline Kahn, or whatever the case is. Like they played that character perfectly. And it's like that person just exaggerated to be a specific character.
Mhm.
And I think that's what gives this movie magic.
So I do want to kind of go through the characters with you guys, because I like
There's
kind of like
nothing
you
else
said,
to the
Scott.
movie.
Yeah, I think you're right that this movie is all about the actors and actresses and their characters. One thing I you know, we're talking about like foreshadowing moments and things like that. I would say one of my favorite things when reading like a mystery novel or watching a mystery movie is figuring it out as you go, or when you figure out, you know, who the murderer was or what the big twist is, you can look back and see like the foreshadowing, or you're like, oh, I could have figured that out if I actually like paid attention and was looking for it. I think one thing this movie suffers from is that there is multiple endings to it, which is pretty unique. I mean, you guys know movies better than me. I don't know if there's other movies out there that have multiple endings like this, but because there's these multiple endings, it's kind of hard for them to go back and, you know, sprinkle that foreshadowing throughout, or make adjustments to the movie so that we as the audience could potentially figure it out.
Yeah, so really quickly, the history of that in this movie, I don't know if you guys uncovered this in your like internet research or anything like that, is when this movie played in theaters, they would randomly pick one of the endings and play that in the theaters. And so you know, your brother would go watch the movie, and then your wife would go watch the movie, and you'd watch the movie, and all three of you could see different endings and be like, no, it was like when Miss Scarlett did it. And they're like, no, Miss Scarlett didn't do it. It was the butler, you know? And so that's how it worked in the theaters. And it wasn't until they made the VHS release that they combined them all into one.
Yeah, Ren, how would you feel about that? Like you go see a movie and you only see one ending, and someone else tells you it's different, and you're like, wait, I have to go back and watch it again to see the other ending? Like, would that annoy you? Or
I think it would annoy the hell out of me, because none of the endings are like that awesome. Like there's definitely one better than the other two, but I like how on the VHS and beyond version, I like how it shows all three. And I remember that I remember being so young watching this. I'm like, wait, there's a different ending. Like it was like hard for me to grasp that. But yeah, the last one they shows, in my opinion, that's the best one and it's the funniest. It's weird. I would be pretty surprised if I went to a movie theater and I only saw ending 1 or A or whatever it is. Because C, I think is these are 3. Yeah, there's 3. So the third ending with the iconic last line with Professor Green as he signs himself off. That like any other ending line would not be as good as that one. So yeah, I think it would drive me nuts. I probably would have seen them all in the theater too.
I don't know. Frankly, Scarlett, I don't give a damn is a pretty good ending line too.
It's true. No, honestly, like out of those endings, I thought the Miss Scarlett one where she was the murderer, I thought that one was pretty solid. I like the Butler one. It's the Mrs. Peacock one in the middle that you're just like,
Yeah.
okay, like what
I
like
don't like you, Miss Peacock. So
Yeah.
stop acting like a grumpy person and just go away. Though them singing for "She's a Jolly Good Fellow" and like all the harmonies and stuff with Madeline Kahn in there, I was like, it's so these
Yeah.
characters, little charm.
Fun little fact about the Miss Peacock ending, actually. So when they let her go outside of the house, she gets caught by the FBI, and then it cuts away. And when it goes back to being outside, there's actually a lot of smoke in the air. And the original ending was that they actually killed her. Like she tried to shoot them, and the cops ended up killing her. And you never see that happen, or maybe they filmed it and it didn't actually, they just cut it. But then they had to go back and tack on that last line where she's like, "Get your hands off me! I'm a senator's wife." I thought that was a funny little tack on at the end. But yeah, I would imagine if they showed them killing her, that probably would put a little damper on the whole movie and be a little bit of a tone shift. So
Let me ask you guys something. You guys, I would say you guys lean more towards the loving board games. Do you think does that make you like this movie more or less? Or what do you think?
honestly, yeah, I would say. I think one thing, there's actually a couple cool things about it. I actually really like that the front entrance, when you walk into the house, is actually in a grid, just to kind of simulate the board game of like putting your piece on a square and moving it forward throughout the room. And if I'm recalling correctly, the layout of the house is actually identical to the board game in terms of the order that the rooms are in.
You beat me to it, man. I went deep. I got the DVD, the Blu-ray DVD, and it had some special feature stuff. And there's interview with the director, Jonathan Lynn, and he was talking about that. How he's like, I literally got at the board game, and that's where like it all started, like the layout of this. I don't know if he said the script or just the house in general with the set piece and everything. And I was like, that's cool. He went straight to the source. But you beat me to that fact. Yeah, that's pretty interesting.
I would say that this is so far the best game to movie adaptation that exists.
Ooh, big
Okay.
claim.
All
Come
right.
on, Scott. Doom was a pretty good movie, I think.
Just watch your language.
Come on, that first person shooter moment with The Rock was pretty good.
Was it though?
Was it though? Was it?
Iconic. So we've talked about Eileen Brennan. I gotta shout out Tim Curry because he's amazing. Dude, there's one scene in here where I forget what he's talking about, but he gets really emotional. I wrote down in my notes, I can't even fathom being that good at acting. Dude, the way his eyes well up and he gets and then he like sniffle, just the way that he did it, I was just like, dude, that was just that one scene.
Immediately shifts into just his continued like dialogue, his monologue.
He's cooking.
Without the crying. He's so good at it.
Yeah, no, I think Tim Curry he does such an incredible job in this movie. I mean, he kind of makes the movie. I think there are some other strong characters in the film. Like Miss Scarlett's kind of really up there in terms of a character that I really like in this one. But without Tim Curry, you don't have this movie.
Mr. Green too. But he's kind of okay. Mr. Green is kind of like Homestar Runner. Like you watch it for strong bad, but then eventually you realize that Homestar Runner is the funniest character in the whole thing. But it takes like 10 years for you to figure that out.
10 years of watching them. I
And
love
that's
it.
what Mr. Green is to me. Mr. Green is like the funniest character in the whole show, but only after you've seen it like 5 times.
There were 2 parts of this movie that I had to pause, rewind, and I watched like 10 different times. And I don't know why, but there were 2. Okay, the first part was where Tim Curry's, he's on some monologue, and then that candlestick falls and just bops him right on the head. That blew my mind. Yeah, I was like, how did they do that? And I was like, this is 1985. They couldn't have CGI'd that. It didn't look fake at all. And also, like, that looks painful and like, right? Dude, if I ever have anything touch the very center, the crown of my skull, I like my skin crawls. Like I don't like that feeling. So if you had to do that take more than once, that was probably brutal. And then the second scene, I actually did a screenshot. Let me see if give me a sec. I might have to figure out how to do this. But I want you to look at this and tell me if this looks weird because I watched it 10 times in a row. Okay. So here's the scene. Just take a look at Mr. Body. Okay. I don't know if this is a stunt. I don't know if this is a doll or like I don't know, but tell me what you think of this. Watch how he falls. Look at his head. Let me rewind it. You have to see that. Let me just redo it. Watch. It's so weird that I don't think it's real.
This is like wigging you out so hard, isn't it? That is pretty impressive, actually.
How did he do that? How did he do that? It looks like, I don't know, maybe I'm tripping, but like I'm doing the exact same thing I did when I watched it. I was like, how did he look so lifeless? And it looks like he hits his head hard.
That's a really good point, honestly. Ren, I love you so much right now. It's so true. Looking at it, you're just like, he's dead. He really
Again.
is dead. Again.
That's not
At
real.
least I thought it was.
Okay, so and then the Tim Curry candlestick, that one's a little more easy to explain, but this one is weird.
Right. Oh my gosh. Actually, one of my favorite moments within this same scene is when so that scene happens and then Miss Peacock's like, "Oh my gosh." And they're like, "Somebody catch her. She's going to faint." And Tim Curry goes up, puts his arms around her. And he's like, "Fall into my arms." And then she flops between his legs and just lays on the ground. I like that scene probably genuinely got the loudest laughter out of me in a long time. That was a really, really funny moment to me.
That's a good part.
So I talked about the visual gags earlier, but I mean, this movie is so quotable. Like this movie has infiltrated my everyday life. And like the number of times, like even like everyone in our family is sick right now, like so sick. And we're like, I'm like telling people to like, no, stay away from us. So instead of that, I go, "No, you need to go away or you'll be canceled." Just Miss Peacock on everybody. And there are 2 sick children in the study.
I just had to shout out Eileen Brennan one more time because I remember when I was younger, she was one of the main reasons I did not like the movie. And not much has changed, but dude, she is pretty awful in this movie. Her yell. I'm sure she did exactly what the director asked her to do. Not a knock on her, but it was pretty painful. I just had to get that out of me. The Tourette's in me, yeah.
No, honestly, I think out of all the characters, I think Mrs. Peacock is probably the weakest in the whole movie. I think she has 1 or 2 moments that I remember, but overall, I feel like she's not really there for me. I think her character is important to the dynamic because I like having that character who's like just like absolutely appalled at all the terrible things everyone's doing, and yet she's just like, what? Like I would never do something like that, like she's trying to act all innocent. And what was that line where she's like, yeah, she's like ranting, then she's like, I mean, look at me, I mean, I've never done anything wrong. You're just like, oh my god. Let's see. What about Mrs. White? What did you think about Mrs. White?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I'm curious. Mrs. White, and what's your history of Madeline Kahn? Because it's important to know how much Madeline Kahn you've had in your life prior to watching this to put your answer in context.
Yeah, for me, it's A Bug's Life. That's it. Yeah. Yeah, I was looking at her filmography. Oh, okay. So I've seen Young Frankenstein, but that's actually on one of my Cinema Slime lists because I want to rewatch that.
Paper Moon, What's Up Doc, Young Frankenstein, Clue, and I'm sure there's a bunch of other ones.
Do you ever see What's Up Doc?
I don't think I've ever seen What's Up Doc.
Barbara Streisand, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So not a lot of Madeline Kahn prior to watching this movie. All right. So what did you think of Mrs. White?
I didn't get a lot out of her character. I don't have anything. It's funny. I was, researching, and you see a lot of fans from this movie, and a lot of them quote that scene where she's like, "The fire in my head," whatever she says. That flames, fire. I didn't even crack a smile at that part of when I was watching it. So like, I felt nothing basically from it. But I know that that's often referenced from Madeline Kahn fans. But what do you? Yeah, go ahead.
No, I find her really funny. I don't know. I don't know, just the seriousness of her and the just the way she says things are very just like, oh, he just, lies around on his back all day, whatever. Yeah, I don't know. She's
Every
just got
single
this
one
kind
of
of
these
like,
characters are just
yeah.
terrifying. If you think about them in real life, you're like, you're a terrible person.
Oh yeah. No, honestly, like look, out of all the people in the house, I mean, I would say Mrs. White is probably the closest person who's probably gonna kill me out of all of them. So she's a little terrifying to me personally. And that was so that's Mrs. White. Then we got what is it, Professor Plum, right? Wait, wait,
Mhm.
wait. Oh no, Mr. Green's the other one. Yeah. So we got Mrs. White, then we got Professor Plum, who's just the pervert, just throughout the whole movie. He's
Mr.
grabbing.
Lloyd is so good.
Okay, now I'm assuming this is before Back to the Future, right?
Yeah, they're filmed about the same time. I don't know which one released first.
Yeah, you're
'Cause
right.
Back to the Future was the whole premise is that it was in 1985 and they were
It's
going
all
to release
yeah,
that.
both 85. So that's interesting you say that. I was going to bring up Christopher Lloyd because I was sort of wanting more from him. He doesn't really cook in this movie unless I'm forgetting a scene, but like I remember I like Christopher Lloyd a lot. I think he's great in almost everything I've seen him in. Throughout this film, I was just like, "Okay, when does he do or what does he I don't even care about him." There is one line. There is the one line where she or go ahead. I can't quote it off the top of my head.
Here's the three moments that really made me just fall in love with this guy. One of them is when they're looking at the evidence. They pull out the film and they're looking it up in the light, and they go, and Mrs. White looks at it and goes, "Oh, there's no way you can get into that position." And he goes, "Sure you can. Let me show you." And he grabs Mrs. White, puts her on the couch, and Mrs. White is just like, "What are you doing?" And then she goes, "Get off me."
Get off me. And that's something that Paige quotes all the time.
Paige does say that a lot. The other one that really like hit me hard, this one was when they're splitting up to go search the house, and they take all the matchsticks and they break them into different sizes. They all draw them, and he pulls the smallest one, and he's literally going up to every single person. He even goes up to Yvette, who has like the giant one, and he puts it up there, and he's like, "Damn, I really thought that was." I thought me and Yvette were going to be partners in this. She's just like, man, I don't know. Just him walking around, just trying to find a partner and, trying to hit on the hot women.
Exhaustively trying every single one that is obviously not his.
Man.
Is pretty good. That's a good visual gag.
It's interesting how you guys are bringing up these parts and like I like remember these parts fondly, but when I think of the whole film, it's like taking a big bite into a big nothing burger. Like I don't know why. I'm having a hard time getting there. I don't know if it's childhood, just pent up annoyance. I don't know what it is, but I just couldn't.
This is so funny. It's like I feel like Scott and I aren't like trying to convince you that it's really funny. I feel like you're trying to convince yourself that wait, but everybody thinks this is funny, and I want to think it's funny.
I agree with that.
I'm just too distracted by Colleen Camp's rack.
Dude. Okay, look, I'm just gonna say this. I'm about 90% sure. I'm about 90% sure that she is the reason that every male in the world has a French-made sexual fantasy. I'm serious. Like
it makes 100% sense. Yeah.
As she's getting murdered in the background right now.
House-made fantasy origins.
Oh my gosh, she has a few funny moments, I would say. Actually, I do kind of like the fact that right before she gets murdered, she completely drops the act, and she loses her accent. Even her like body posture, and even how she's like walking into the room feels really different. Like it was completely a whole act, and honestly, like watching that, it makes me feel like the ending where Miss Scarlett was the murderer is kind of makes the most sense to me, honestly. Like I like the ending where everybody murders everybody and Wadsworth is the main bad guy
because it fits the rest of the movie.
It almost feels like they filmed the movie with the idea that Miss Scarlett was going to be the murderer at the end, and then they tacked on the extra endings. And I feel like they put some effort into making the Wadsworth ending be, kind of make sense. But still, there's still a couple moments in there actually here. So I try not to, I don't know. I generally don't look for plot holes in movies. I tend to just watch them and just be like, okay, well, they put this in the movie the way it's supposed to be. So I'm just going to accept whatever they give me, basically. But one of them that kind of made me raise my eyebrows in this one the one murder that doesn't actually make sense. Well, there's probably a couple of them, but the one that stood out to me was so the scene is that Mrs. White is up on the second story. She goes into this room and there's a giant Jack in the Box that pops out. I don't know why there's a giant Jack in the Box inside of this mansion, but it pops up. She screams, and then the next scene is Yvette going down the stairs. She goes into the study, I believe, and she gets killed. Now in the Wadsworth ending, it's Mrs. White who was the one who killed her. So that's the one I was watching. I was like, that doesn't make sense because Mrs. White on the second floor is screaming right now. So I'm sure there's plenty of other plot holes, but that was the one that stood out to me.
Yeah, if you're gonna like pick nits, I saw basically it was just like a continuity errors with the chandelier is just like impossibly close to the stairwell in one scene, and then when it falls, it's like right in the middle of the room. But yeah, little things like that. But honestly, I didn't notice that when I was watching the film.
So like how much does plot holes affect you guys in terms of viewing movies? Like do they really mess you up and you're like, I can't even let this go? Or are you just like, I honestly don't even look for them and I don't really care?
I'll take this one. It depends on the movie. And if it's a movie where the whole point is that the plot is consistent and they just did a bad job in the editing, or they halfway through the film decided to push a different agenda or something like that, and it doesn't line up with the original like structure of the film, those are obvious to me, and I go, that's bad art. That's art that got worse because more hands touched it. But in the case of like this movie, or like the 1980s Mario Brothers movie or something like that, where you're like, what? Like, it just doesn't matter because that's not the point. The point is it was a fun romp or whatever. And this movie is absolutely a fun romp. It's a character expose of stereotypes and wrapped around a really famous board game. That's it, And it's got a star cast, that just had fun. It feels like they made it a play for film originally. Like, instead of it being like a Broadway thing that they made into a movie, it was like, let's just bring all of the energy of what a play would be and put it into, the film structure and stuff like that, and use, different shots to convey things and stuff. So it has all of the essence of a play, but all of the quality of a film.
I came across an interview of Tim Curry. He had a stroke a few years ago, and now he's kind of making his recovery and he's able to talk. But someone asked him his favorite movie to work on, and he mentioned Clue. He said this was the most fun that he had making any film. And that speaks to exactly what you're talking about. I'm sure behind the scenes, dude, I'm sure they were just a bunch of thespians having a freaking awesome time in their zone and just cooking. And one little tidbit from the special features thing that I found is that while they were filming, they didn't even know who the killer was. So it was just as much of a surprise to them until they got to that scene where they filmed it as it is to the viewer, which I think really, I mean, we kind of talked about it, but they do kind of pepper in like, oh, that's kind of suspicious. Like, why did he say that? Or why did she kind of move her eyes when they mentioned so-and-so? And, there's just lots of that kind of peppered in, but it's just to distract and throw you off the whole time.
Let's move on to Miss Scarlett. What'd you guys think about her?
Yeah, who is she? I can't remember if I looked into who she was, but she looks so familiar. But I think it's just from this movie.
If I'm recalling correctly, I believe she, the one thing I remember mentioned in like a little background feature I saw, she's Superman's girlfriend in a really bad movie about Superman, if I'm recalling correctly. But I don't think she's in a ton of other things that I can think of at the moment. I'm gonna look it up real fast though.
Is it Leslie Ann Warren? Yeah, I feel like she's in current films, but I think she just looks very different than she does in this movie. So maybe I've seen her and just didn't realize. Yeah, these are a lot of films.
So just for filmography and on IMDb, she was in a movie called Victor Victoria. She had a long stint on Desperate Housewives, it looks like. Clue is on there, and then she was in a version of Cinderella, apparently. But yeah, it looks like Desperate Housewives was her big one.
I think she's a really strong actress in this film. I don't even like her character, but it's not like I really like any of the characters. That's not the point. They're just funny. They're funny because of who they are. And I think she does a great job. I think she does a great job at her character.
I'll say my two notes that I have on her. One, they don't make outfits like that anymore. I don't know what it was,
Yeah.
but like the big dome behind her, I was like, they just don't do that anymore. And she looks absolutely spectacular in my opinion. And the other part that I absolutely loved, and I didn't really clock this in all my previous viewings, but when they're having their first meeting in the study and Wadsworth is going through and basically saying like, this is why you're being blackmailed and this is what you did. As he's doing that, Miss Scarlett is like walking around and like laughing in their face about it or just making comments. And she's just like, spill the tea. I want to know what's going on. And she's just absolutely just, drinking it all up. And it's, I don't know, it's just really funny to see her energy in that scene.
One thing I came across is Lee Ving, who plays Mr. Body. Every word of his dialogue was overdubbed.
Yeah,
Like
why?
his
Really?
voice is, I don't know. Maybe he just wasn't pulling it off. Maybe they probably screen tested it. And that also kind of leads me to, and apparently Lee Ving is like the lead singer to this punk group called Fear. Just some little tidbits I found on the way, but
I have a good one for Miss Scarlett, actually. I just remembered. So the original actress for Miss Scarlett was Carrie Fisher, who plays Princess Leia in Star Wars.
Wow.
She was originally clocked and set in to play her, and if I'm recalling correctly, it was like a week away from filming, and she went into rehab before they started filming.
Oh,
Then they had to
yeah.
change actresses. Yeah.
Yeah.
And honestly, like, I'm not very good in terms of like, oh, I wonder what this character would be like if this actress or actor had it instead. But that's one that I'm like, I bet you Carrie Fisher could have pulled that off extremely well, because she's, from all the interviews I've seen of her and, hearing interviews talking about her, like she was a real character in real life. And I feel like she could have pulled off Miss Scarlett extremely well. And I think we would have had another great film with her.
I'm trying to look it up, but Colleen Camp showed up for auditions in her maid outfit, and she got the part. Obviously, like I'm trying to look it up right now, but there was like two other prominent names who.
I came across the story about her wearing the maid outfit, and they were just like, "Well, I guess you got the part." I don't recall the other actresses that.
Madonna. Madonna was one person who tried to audition for that part. Yeah, she had no chance against Colleen Camp.
So another line that we quote in our house all the time is when leaving says, "It's a hoax. I suggest we all leave." It's such a dumb line, and it's so obviously dubbed. It's so great. It's so iconic. It's kind of like, it's like Castlevania Symphony of the Night has the worst recording dialogue in that game ever, but it's like so bad it's good. It like wraps around itself and is suddenly good because it's so bad. And that line is one where, if anybody in the house is doing something that's obviously wrong or something like that, me or Paige will just be like, "It's a hoax. I suggest we all leave."
That's awesome. I got some quick hitters, just some interesting things I found out. But Jonathan Lynn and Tim Curry knew each other when they were like 12, 13, 14 years old. So you kind of think about the closing doors or the sliding doors moments, but maybe we'd never not know who Tim Curry is if they didn't have that relationship and he cast him in this movie. I thought that was kind of cool.
Tim Curry is so young and cute in this movie.
Yeah, he's awesome in this movie, and I don't have it in front of me. I won't waste time, but I'm curious. Like, this was the breakout role, right? Or was this his first movie? Do you guys know?
I know he was in Rocky Horror Picture Show before this, but that movie definitely wasn't a big hit when it first came out.
Yeah, that's a slow burn cult classic.
Yeah, that's definitely one. I've never seen it, and I'm kind of tempted to. I want to kind of go to one of the live viewings of it, because I've heard that's kind of like, that's how you have to do it. Holy wow. Okay, so I just clicked onto Tim Curry's IMDb, looking at his filmography. How many credits do you think he has as an actor?
I'm gonna guess
so many.
89.
89. Scott, how many?
That's my guess.
I'd go 123.
243 acting credits. How freaking mind-blowing is that?
How is that possible?
It's so honestly, it's a lot of voice acting and a lot of like one episode type of things, but still, it's just, that absolutely blows my mind. I mean, that is so many different ones. I mean,
six films a year.
Yeah, that
That's
blows my
I mean, if you
mind.
come in and you play, I mean, he's typecast for his like goofy face, right? He's like slightly sinister, but like also charming. And as he got older, he got like really ugly. And so you could just make him really ugly. I remember seeing him in like Criminal Minds once he was a serial killer in Criminal Minds. And I was like, you disgust me. You're terrifying. And I really like Tim Curry. And I was like, I don't think I like you anymore after this.
Man,
My
this
Tim Curry introduction was in Annie,
oh
and
man, I forgot about that one. So just as a quick rundown on Tim Curry, real quick. The first movie, so I went down to those very first acting credits. The first movie I saw that was big was Annie. The next one is Clue. And then you start hitting into I know he's in Fern Gully as the ooze, like the slime guy. That
yeah,
I don't think I'll ever forget that the musical number with the ooze in Fern Gully. His voice in that
yeah,
is just absolute perfection. And then actually it comes up pretty early in his
my hero.
filmography. Yeah, in the 90s there. Oh
Love that
my
movie.
gosh.
Hiya, Georgie.
Man.
Hiya, Georgie.
Honestly, I feel like I could sit down and just be like, "Hey, I want to watch 20 movies with Tim Curry in it," and it'd be banger after banger after banger. Like,
I was just gonna say one thing that kind of seems apparent, maybe more so for me, but this was a movie that when they did like test screenings for it, didn't really test well. I don't remember if that was more so like from the audience or from studio executives or whatever, but Jonathan Lynn was just talking about how his film was really compromised in the final cuts. They actually did film a fourth ending and it was cut because it simply wasn't good. That's kind of just what they said. So there was originally four. I thought that was kind of interesting. I would love to see that. And then Jonathan Lynn was just recounting. He's like, I remember there were two or three scenes that like destroyed me when we had to get rid of them. And it's been so long that I don't remember what they were, but I just remember in the moment just being so sad that this was being taken away from my film. And I kind of felt really bad for him, but you can kind of feel that in the movie, at least for me. Like, yeah, it was compromised. It makes sense. I feel like if Jonathan Lynn was just given the space to make it exactly how he wanted, I think it would have came out better. But
Mhm.
I'm in the minority. A lot of people love this movie, so
I,
it is
I
what
no,
it
I
is.
would say, correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like this movie was kind of a cult growth movie. It wasn't a box
Yeah,
office success.
it
Yeah,
was
and
a
And so,
failure
so
in the theaters. There, that
like, I
strategy
think,
didn't work.
yeah,
well, yeah, because I think the thought was like people would go to the movie theater, they'd watch it, and then they'd learn like, oh, there's a different ending, and they're like, wait, hold on, so I have to pay to see the movie again, and maybe I get a different ending. I think that's kind of what it was, and honestly, like the concept. What do you guys think of the concept of having a movie that has multiple endings, or maybe it doesn't even have to be
okay.
an ending, maybe like a scene. It's like, hey, at this moment, we're going to make a different decision, three different decisions, then it's going to spread out and we'll see what happens in all of them. Like, what do you think about that idea?
Okay, so I'm going to tackle this from two angles, and then I want to hear your thoughts too, Ren. So the first is isolated as a movie. I think it's kind of fun to play around with mediums, like House of Leaves as a book is a novel that will blow your freaking mind because it's not like a novel. Like it's written in a book format, but you feel like you're on an absolute like Cthulhu acid trip reading this book. And you're like, how did you do that to me? And it's just because how it's written and it's so avant-garde and so weird that you're like, okay, now I kind of have an idea of what the limits are of what was too weird and what was like just outside of convention, but can still work. And I love to see movies, games, novels, whatever, do that kind of music, do that kind of thing. And I think that the fact that they did that with this movie was fun. And I think that the fact, so bringing in my second angle that I was going to talk about this is Clue, the board game, has multiple endings, right? It has a different ending literally every single time you play it. That's the whole point. Um, and Clue, for work, I worked on a Clue game for a while that didn't actually end up getting made. So I can talk about it now. But I worked on a Clue game for a bit, and we worked really hard to try and boil down the essence of like what makes Clue Clue, and part of it was multiple endings and rewriting that. Now, it's also interesting that I've been in stage productions, like middle school stage productions, where the audience during the intermission voted for who they thought did it, and the highest votes was the ending for the play. So having multiple endings for a murder mystery is like a pretty normal, like parlor trick kind of thing to do. And so for them to bring that over to a movie is also like, oh, this could work, or it'd be a fun idea to try or something like that. So obviously it didn't work, but it's certainly iconic.
Yeah.
And it makes you wonder, is that cultural expectation or is that a limitation of the medium? I don't know.
Yeah, that's interesting because I remember being young enough, but when I did watch the movie, I remember I had played the game prior. So it wasn't like I just kind of knew where I was once I was watching the movie. But if I never played the board game, I think it just would have been too much. I don't know if that added to it. But back to the 3 different endings, that strategy that they had, I just think they kind of were just getting greedy and they thought they were going to make 3 times as much money by doing this and splitting up the endings. To me, I love that it kind of bit them in the ass because when they released it on VHS and played it on TV, they played all 3 endings, and that's where the movie really got popular. That's where people were like, "Oh, I forgot about this movie, and I don't remember these other 2 scenes." Or maybe they did see them all in the theater, but it doesn't sound like many people did that based on the box office numbers.
I mean, could you imagine going to the theater and getting the Peacock ending? You'd be like, really? Like,
I'd be so
that. Me personally, I don't mind the idea of like they do in, I guess video games would probably be the closest thing you could get to multiple different endings. I mean, games like Fallout or Skyrim or like those big kind of big games.
You've paid for it once.
Yeah. Like, big games like that often have like, hey, you did a lot of crap while you were a bad person throughout this. Here's your ending, or here's a lot of good things you did. Here's your ending. So I guess that has more of a connection to video games than I would say movies. Because I mean, I would actually love if anyone's listening to this and can leave a comment of any other movie that does have multiple endings. I think that'd be really interesting. Or if maybe this is the only one that's ever done it. That's kind of
it could be.
That's like a hard pill for me to swallow, for that to be the only idea, the only person who's ever had that idea to do it in a movie. But who knows? Could be.
Is Glass Onion like a direct ripoff of this movie? I never saw that film. Have you guys seen that?
No. I mean, what is it? So there's 2 of them. There's what's the first one? It's something by Knives or
Knives Out.
So it's Knives Out and then Glass Onion. I mean, so Knives Out is kind of like the classic murder mystery inside of a mansion kind of a thing.
It's not a comedy.
That's what I love.
It has quirky characers, but it's not a comedy.
Yeah,
but it's not Clue, just repackaged. No. Okay.
No. I mean, no, it's got the theme of like, I don't know. I personally really love reading books or watching a movie where it's going to be one of these 10 people. One of these 10 people is the murderer. I really like movies like that because it kind of gets rid of. Because what was it? I was reading a book by Dean Koontz, I think. Shame on me for that, but I remember reading the book and I got to the end and you figure out who killed him, and it's someone that you like. I don't know. Like I read it and I was like, "There's no way we could have figured that out," because he wasn't in the book really. Like he was mentioned once or twice or something, but I remember reading it just being like, well, that was dumb. Like if I can't, I don't know. In my opinion, if you're going to do a murder, like a mystery book like that, in my opinion, the reader or the audience needs to be able to figure it out. Like there has to be, either after the fact, when who the murderer was, you can go back and look and see it. Or if you read it close enough, you could kind of deduct it and figure it out as you go. Because if I get to the end and there's no way I could have figured it out, then what's the point? Like, I don't know. Me personally.
Harrison, slimiest scene.
Oh, the slimiest scene, the one that kind of sticks with me and makes me think the most. I would say I really do like the scene of them being in the study and Wadsworth going through and talking about, this is why you're being blackmailed. This is what you did, because that's kind of when all these characters kind of, you're peeling the onion, as they say, you're kind of figuring out who these people are and discovering their personalities and, what they're kind of capable of. And you can kind of see like, oh, like we definitely need to keep an eye on Mrs. White because her husband, lost his head, and things like that. So I would say that's kind of the one that sticks out in my head. And I would say out of a rating, I mean, it's a 5 out of 5. Like this is one of my favorite movies, and I stand by that. Even watching it again, you know, I feel like I have had a little bit of a break between watching it. Like it's kind of like you, Scott. You mentioned you're like, yeah, I watch it every year. That's probably been 2 or 3 years since I watched the film, and I watched it when I watched it to do this podcast. I just loved it all over again.
Yeah, so the slimiest scene for me is the opening like soup eating scene. And for similar reasons as you, Harrison, it's this is when you see all of the characters' personalities come out, but no expose. It's like every single character, you go, okay, yeah, that's who you're going to see the whole rest of the movie. That's who you're going to see the whole rest of the movie. It's their put together version that they just like exaggerate more and more and more throughout the film. I think that that's probably some of the best acting in the whole film right there. Is that scene. I'm going to give a really weird contradictory answer to this. I think this movie gets a 3.5 or 4 out of 5. And it's still, I love it. And I still recommend it to everybody, but it's not that great of a movie. It's just hilarious. Like I love it and I watch it all the time, but it's like, it's not because it's that great. I just love it. Like my opinion is that this is really funny. Objectively, my opinion doesn't matter.
I just wish I could see the film uncompromised by studio executives. I wish Colleen Camp had a nude scene, and I love the scene where that would give it at least a full star rating higher than what I gave it. Tim Curry's great. The singing telegram lady being shot made me chuckle. One thing that you just don't see in movies nowadays, there are a few things, but making out with a dead person, that was pretty shocking. I was like, wow, okay.
You know what? That was definitely a scene as a kid. I was like, oh, okay. They're trying to, you know, whatever. Yeah. And now I watch it. I'm like, that is so freaking disgusting. Oh my gosh.
Like so dark.
That was so nasty.
You could just see the scriptwriters in the room just like
I also remember when I saw this movie, I didn't know the concept of being gay. So this movie introduced me to that whole world.
There you go.
Yeah, I didn't know about that. I remember asking mom, I was like, what? Wait, Mr. Green? What? Anyways, yeah, I guess so. After I first watched it, again, the nothing burger taste was in my mouth. I gave it a 3-star rating. Time's gone by. It's now a 3.5. And I can't go higher. I understand. I respect everyone's opinions. But for me, it's just blah to me. But I love that you guys have your own memories and I respect it.
One of the ways I gauge in terms of how much I like a movie is if I would recommend it to someone. So if someone came up to you, Ren, and was like, hey, I was thinking about watching Clue tonight. Should I watch it? What would you say?
Probably not. I would say, hey, I know probably 434 movies that are better than that one.
There you go. I love it. No, straight take. That's perfectly fine with me. So I know we got to wrap up here, but I just realized we haven't even mentioned the Tim Curry's final scene of him reenacting the whole night.
Yes.
And I think like we have to at least mention it, because I feel like our audience would like kill us. Any Clue fans out there be like, how did you not talk about it? So I just want to bring that up. I think it's a brilliant piece of film. I mean, just him running around, reenacting everything, taking pause moments to explain what's going on. It was great. Especially the moment where he walks up and tries to strangle Mrs. White and reenacting Yvette getting killed. I thought that was pretty.
There are some pretty shots too. There's some cool shadow shots. There was some cool, when it shows the kind of the stormy weather and it shows the mansion from afar. There's some nice scenes, and then there's a dead body laying on the pool table, and I screenshotted that. And I was like, that's. Anyways, there were some parts that were nice. I just gotta shout that up too. I'm not hating. I just
So looking over my notes, I have one last note to put, and then we can wrap up here. The one joke that I didn't get as a kid that I got now was that I think it's wrapping up after the second ending with Peacock, I think, and someone says like, "Oh, is the FBI going to cover up this after multiple murders?" And Wadsworth goes, "Why, yes. Why do you think the FBI is run by a man called Hoover?" I love that. I literally the line happened. there was a beat, and I was like, "Oh my gosh! All right, you got me there." I don't know. It made me chuckle pretty hard.
Well, cool. Well, let's wrap things up. I had a great time hanging out with you guys. Scott, I'm glad you're feeling better. Harrison, thanks for everything. Stick around with us, and we're actually going to transition over to the Cinema Slime list random drawing. We recorded that at an earlier time, so we're not going to reveal what those movies are yet, but stick around, listen, and we're going to pick out the next 4 films that we're going to dissect and discuss from here on out.
I'm hyped for them. Honestly, I keep looking at the list, and I'm just like, yes.
Dude, all timer. Stay tuned. All right, guys. Thank you. I'm glad you're all feeling better, or I'm glad you're feeling better, Scott and Harrison. You're awesome.
Thanks,
All right,
man.
love y'all.
Love you guys.
All right, love you guys. Have a good night.
You too.
Welcome to your doom.
All right, we're here just recording this part of the podcast. We're going to do a random drawing. This is a tradition that we've just started. Who knows if it'll stick? Maybe we'll evolve and go to something else. But I kind of like having this lottery system of picking out a movie. It makes it exciting for me, at least. I don't know about you.
No, I really like this lottery system because it kind of makes you realize that it doesn't really matter what movie you're watching, as long as you got people around to talk about it. That's what really makes this really exciting and fun to do. So last time we did this lottery system and randomly picked some movies, the theme that we kind of went with was just kind of all of our favorite movies of all time. You know, our 5 out of 5s, one that kind of represents who we are. Ren, you kind of picked out the theme for this drawing. Why don't you tell us a little bit about it?
Well, I really like the theme of how we're all kind of mixing in different tastes and interests that we all like so we can all stay engaged, but also that we can all speak from a place where we're excited about these films. You know, sometimes we'll get movies that maybe I don't love, but you love, vice versa. And I think it's cool that we all have that perspective coming into it. And since we're recording this before we've actually done the Clue episode, I'll reveal this, but like wasn't excited about Clue, but as time went on, it's a great movie. So just kind of things like that where I can kind of see, I'm like, oh, okay. Kind of had some preconceived notions. And I was wrong about a few things and I can learn and grow. But also I know there's going to be movies where like it's the opposite and I still hate it no matter what, or how often we dissect it and talk about it. So I'm excited for all that. We were talking about just some old memories and going to the Blockbuster Video around the corner. And that really got me thinking. I would just spend hours just walking up and down every aisle, looking at all these cool or like weird sort of covers. A lot of times a movie was rated PG-13 or rated R, so no chance of us even renting it or watching it. We're adults now and we can watch whatever the hell we want to watch. So that's really awesome. Yeah. There's just certain movie covers that are just ingrained into your brain. Shout out to Jack
Yes.
Frost. I shared a picture on our Discord about that cover. I remember walking by that. So some honorable mentions. I'll just mention Barbed Wire with Pamela Anderson, that iconic face she's making, and then the Leprechaun 3 cover kind of scared me as a kid. But just these VHS covers that are just ingrained in my memory, and we just created and compiled a list between all 3 of us of ones that came to mind.
Yeah, kind of had a cool moment. I actually texted our family chat and I was like, hey, what are some VHSs we had growing up? Because kind of the way I took it was, you know, movies that I used to watch on VHS all the time, or maybe I was flipping through the VHSs and I was like, oh, I've never actually watched that movie that we always had. And our dad actually texted me. This will tell you exactly what kind of kid I was. I went when I was probably 12 or something. I went through and I made a list of every single VHS we ever owned. And shockingly, you know, way shocked, our dad still has that list, and he sent it to the chat. And I was reading through it, and I was like, oh my gosh, like. There's some. It was just a blast from the past. It was really fun. So I read through all those, then I kind of cracked through my head to figure out some other ones, and I came up with I think I came up with 6 that I wanted to put on my list. I think you ended up with like 10, and Scott, he's not here with us, but he has a couple on his list. I think about 8 or so.
Yeah, we got a really good variety of movies, I would say, just looking through these. And what I kind of like about it too is I think I interpreted that a little differently than you, so our lists don't have to be perfect, and I kind of love that. So.
No, sounds good. Are you ready to jump into this?
All right. So remind me and the listener, what are we doing? We're taking 3 different lists and choosing random from each. We're not doing random from the total list, correct?
Yeah. So, for example, I have a list of about 6 movies. Scott has a list of about 8 movies, and you have a list of about 10 movies. We're going to randomly choose from each of our lists. That way, we each have one kind of representing us and how we interpreted this idea, and that more represents each of us. So, we're going to end up with three films at the end of this. Actually, before we randomly choose one of them, I think let's just go through our list and just kind of talk about the movies we put on there. So, just real fast, I had a couple here. So, Harriet the Spy was the first one I absolutely put on. I know it's not like this heavy, intense film, but that was the VHS movie for me. And I watched it so many times as a kid. And that was the first movie I thought of when you mentioned this. Meet Joe Black is on there. And because I probably watched that when I was way too young. And I remember it because it was 2 VHSs. And that was like a really big deal to me for some reason.
Totally.
X-Men, the first one is on there. Actually one of my favorite superhero movies and my favorite Marvel superhero team of all time. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. That one had to be on there. This one's a little different. Benny and June.
Oh,
So that was.
I hope that wins.
So that was a VHS that I remember going through the collection, and I would always pull it out and look at it. And I remember, I don't know why, it just always stuck with me, but I never watched it because I was a punk kid. I didn't know anything.
Yeah.
So, but I always remembered it coming up. And then the last one I have is Jungle Book, the live version. I remember watching that one a ton, and I'm really interested because I loved it when I was younger, and I'm really curious if it's any good at all.
Wilkins, Wilkins.
I think no matter what, I think it's going to be a really fun watch.
Yeah.
So.
All right, cool.
All right. Well, yeah, that's my list. I think we're going to randomly pull for mine and see what we're going to end up with. I'm excited for this. Okay, the one I randomly drew is going to be Jungle Book Live is the one I randomly pulled. I'm actually really excited about this one. Like I said, it's one that I fondly remember, and I'm really curious if it's still any good. So I'm excited about that one. We'll get to Benny and June another day, it looks like.
All right. We'll live with that. Hold on. What year? Let's just go over the year of this because I think the original is 1956. This one, I'm going to guess 2002. Let's just see.
I think it's okay. Hold on, not looking at it. I think it's 90s, 96.
94. Okay.
Ooh, I was close.
6 years old when this came out. Oh man. So you were like 3. Oh, you were 3 years old when this came out.
I was born in 92. Dude, okay, look at this cast. Look at this cast list: Jason Scott Lee, Carrie Elwes, the guy from Princess Bride, Lena Headey, she played Cersei in Game of Thrones, Sam Neill from like Jurassic Park, and then John Cleese. Like, that's a pretty awesome cast.
All right,
looking at that,
I'm into this. I didn't know. I totally forgot Sam Neill was in this, and Lena. Oh man, oof.
Yeah, right. I know. Like Lena Headey is going to be really young in this one. I just know it. I think it's going to be fun. I think it's going to be a really fun read. Watch.
All right, for my selections, I have 10. I'm just going to rifle through these. 1, They Live, incredible. 2, The Fly, never seen it. 3, The Outsiders. I was forced to watch it, never watched it, didn't retain any of it, so I want to revisit this. Plus, the all-star cast is insane. Face Off, Videodrome, Cinema Paradiso, Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, Young Frankenstein, Blazing Saddles, and Detroit Rock City. All right, hit it.
Yeah. By the way, I'm so glad you put Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves on there. I would say, look, we all have biases. I think I'm secretly voting for that one. What is there any on that list that you're secretly voting for?
Not really. I kind of wanted to. These are mostly I haven't seen these movies. So they're like covers that have intrigued me in the past. Like I said, we kind of loosely based the theme around something a little bit differently. But They Live is an all-time favorite movie of mine that I watched for the first time maybe 2 or 3 years ago. We'll get into it when we watch that movie eventually, but that movie has influenced me a lot. It's like in a hilarious amounts of influence has been put onto me from that movie. So it's great.
I love it. All right, we're gonna do our little drawing here. Looks like we ended up with Detroit Rock City is the randomly chosen one for us to watch.
Yes.
You're excited about that one.
Have you seen it?
Detroit Rock City. Let's see. I don't think I have.
Okay.
I honestly I can't even picture it. Let's see. Detroit Rock City. Let's take a look
It's
at
a
this.
fun time.
19
It's a fun time.
Oh my gosh. In 1978, four rebellious teenagers tried to scam their way into a Kiss concert. It came in 1999, and I don't recognize a single person from the cast list. Actually, Melanie Linsky, I know her. Okay, sounds good. Okay, let's so Scott's not here, but we're just gonna go over his list real quick. I feel like these are traumas from his childhood. That's kind of the vibe I got.
I was just gonna say these are probably all traumatic movies that he watched on VHS. This is perfect.
Oh, most definitely. Okay, so going over his list, we got Halloween, RoboCop, Warriors of the Wind, which, by the way, I thought that was. Do you remember a movie where there's a bunch of kangaroos and they're like ninja masters?
Warriors of Virtue.
Yeah, so I thought that's what this was, and I was like, no way, I can't believe Scott, you know what that movie is, but it's not. But still, it's funny. Then he's
That's
got
awesome.
Terminator 2, Nightmare on Elm Street, American Werewolf in London, which I am actually excited to see that. I've never watched that one. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, so me and him got a little theme going on there. And then The Great Escape. But no, I'm excited for almost all of these. Like, I don't watch a lot of slasher flicks, so if we hit one, it's definitely going to be a new experience for me. Just like, I literally can't think of any slasher flicks I've ever watched. So it's going to be interesting if we hit like Halloween or Nightmare on Elm Street or something
Well,
like that.
American Werewolf in London is my favorite of these that I have seen. I haven't seen all of those movies on his list, so that's what I'm pulling for. I think you would love it. It's a great movie.
The one thing I've heard about it is has a lot of incredible practical effects. That's like the one thing that I keep hearing about it. So it's definitely on my list of intriguing things to, because I feel like that's a movie I'm going to watch and I'm going to be like, hold on, how the hell did they do this? And I'm going to look up a bunch of background information. I think that would be fun.
I rewatched it probably within 6 months or so, and it holds up. It's incredibly entertaining, and yeah, I'm excited. I have a feeling we're going to land on that, but we'll see what happens.
Okay, I'm going to hit it. All right, looks like we ended up with RoboCop is actually the one we ended up on.
Let's go. I've never seen it. I'm excited.
I've never seen it, but I will say for some reason I have this weird disconnect with it because for some reason I thought it was a very heroic movie for whatever, I don't know, maybe it's just a police thing, but every time I see a clip of it, I'm like, whoa, that is really freaking gory and like terrifying. So I think it's gonna be an interesting one to watch. So yeah, just to review real quick, the three movies we're gonna watch in this order. We're gonna watch The Jungle Book live, really hard hitting stuff here, guys. And then we're going to go with Ren's pick, which is going to be Detroit Rock City. And then after that, we're going to wrap this theme up with RoboCop. And then after we're done with those three, we'll pick another theme, or maybe we'll go back to our cinema top 5 favorite movies of all time. Either way, I think we're going to have a really fun time going through this.
Me too. Can I throw out a suggestion? I kind of think we should just draw a fourth, but compiled from all of our lists, and just do a fourth one. Yeah,
we can do that.
We have so many good movies, and sometimes scheduling can be tough. So I think if we do it now, that just sets us up for 4 movies in the future.
All right. It came from your list, is the one we ended up on. You ready for this?
Let's go.
They Live is what we ended up on.
Yes! Yes! Oh, heck yeah. You're going to love it. It's awesome.
That is, I'm excited. I'm excited for you to be excited for us. I think it's going to be really
awesome.
fun.
All right, cool.
Perfect.
Beautiful. All right, so Jungle Book, Detroit Rock City, RoboCop, and They Live. I'm excited. I'm so stoked. All right, well, we'll share this with Scott, and we'll get to work, watch these amazing movies, and join us next week when we dive into the 1994 version of The Jungle Book.
Yeah, sounds good, man.
All right, dude. All right, I got to go eat some dinner. Talk to you soon.
All right, love you, man. Bye.
Love you. Bye. That's a wrap, and thanks for hanging out with us. Cinema Slime is a production hosted by Harrison Jensen, Ren Jensen, and Scott Shepard. This episode was mixed, edited, and produced by Harrison with design and art by Ren. There's more slime coming your way, so don't forget to subscribe, share, and drop a comment. You can find us on all your favorite social media platforms with links in the episode notes, and on Patreon, we will have exclusive content and merch. Until next time, go watch a movie.